There's a lot to talk about from Tuesday's joint practice with the Raiders, especially how Houston had one of its better practices in the run department.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
From H-Town to your town, today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. Fun lineup today for each segment. We're going to talk about Jayden Higgins going down towards the end of today's podcast. Munty and Marks, they had a day on the ground, and really it seems like overall for the Houston Texans offense, but it's important just to open up today's podcast discussing the joint practice all together. Based on reports, CJ Stroud, hey, listen, man, I think, and I want y'all to tell me how you feel. Hit me up on social media, in the comment section on YouTube, but I think Stroud is putting this offense together. He's coming along. As I've said before, I think CJ Stroud is going to be in a much better place mentally, physically this year, but also, and more importantly, just more of a control and handle on the offense. But, I mean, he still will need players to be healthy around him. He talked about Fernando Mendoza, and he said, I think he's going to be a good player. He'll have a lot of success in the league if he continues to put himself, continues to be himself and put God first. And, of course, what they put around him matters. Was that a shot at the Houston Texans front office? What they put around him matters? But I'm your Texans credential media member and football analyst, John Hickman. Shout out to my everydayers from the Himalayas for making the Locked On Texan podcast your first listen of the day. If you guys haven't already, go back and check out the Monday and the Tuesday morning shows as I have interviews with Jerry Wayne, Ed Ingram on Monday, and also Marte Mapu on Tuesday. Today's episode is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code Locked On to get $10 when you trade $10. I want you guys to hear from DeMeco Ryans on joint practice takeaways.
Yeah, really great opportunity as we've been looking forward to the joint practice versus the Raiders. As being out here today, it was a really good day. Both sides are really competitive football, physical football. Both sides making plays. So a lot of positives from us on both sides. Also a lot to learn, a lot to clean up as well. I think we got out of the joint practice right now exactly what we wanted. Really good competitive work, different schemes to go against different players, and it was really great work. So proud of the guys for today. I really liked the way we ran the football. Thought we stuck well onto our blocks and we finished well. Our running backs, they were the highlight of the day for me, the way they ran the ball physical, low pad level, really finishing runs. They did a really nice job. Yeah, standing there behind the offensive line, just hearing the communication, getting all the guys getting on the same page, really proud of starting with our centers for the way they communicated, also for the quarterbacks and everybody echoing the calls to make sure we're on the same page versus a different front. Really happy that we were able to get some 5-down looks so we can really stress our communication, and it worked well for us today. Yeah, Woody has shown confidence, back since OTAs, right? Seeing him, running the football, looking faster, quicker, but also in the passing game, excelling. Very defined at the top of his routes, which is cool to see. It's tough. He's a tough cover because he's so quick. He can beat you deep and also beat you underneath as well. So he's doing a really great job.
All right, so let's talk Texans in the Tuesday joint practice with my friend, Miss Kim Davis.
All right.
Kim Davis, welcome to the Locked On Texan podcast. I know it was hot outside, but it seemed like the Texans offense was a little bit hotter. What was your takeaways from Tuesday?
It was. Hey, as always, thank you for having me. You can tell I'm getting a little sun kiss from being out in the sun, but yes, it was hot. It was hot. But listen, I thought today looked pretty good. There were some things that were interesting. I'm sure we'll get into, but I will say the offense looked good. In particular, I know you probably heard DeMeco talk about it, the run game. He was impressed with the way the run game. I think you and I talked about it. I thought, especially when you talk about Montgomery, you're not going to really see what he does until he's playing against another team, because Buffalo, what he does happens on the second and third level. Right. And you can't really replicate that in practice. So it looked pretty good.
He did talk about, what he got out of the run game, and then also Woody Marks and how he's been consistently just evolving as a back. He highlighted some of the things that he's been doing as a receiver, especially at the top of his routes. Should this be a tandem? And I know it's hard to tell. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more on Thursday, which I'll see you.
Right.
Could this be a tandem that can make up for some of the other lack of efficiencies in this offense? Like, we want to talk about Jerry Wayne, Jayden Higgins and Jalen Noel in the wide receiver unit, but could that run game between Marks and Monty kind of help with that?
I think it could. I talked to the other day, I did an interview with running back coach Danny Barrett, and I was asking him about Woody Marks in year 2, and he said, Kim, Woody's not really like a second-year back. He's like more advanced than that, and he talked about him in a way that makes me feel like the idea of a tandem, especially because you can throw it to him, right? He's a pass-catching threat. I do think that they could be more of a tandem. Woody Marks looks really good. David Montgomery is the veteran and brings the experience, but it could be a tandem that could give them a run game that they've been so desperately seeking their entire tenure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Woody Marks was a back coming out of college between Mississippi State and USC, over 1,500 receiving yards. What's some of your other takeaways from Tuesday joint practice with the Raiders? Tom Brady was out there. I saw him chopping it up a little bit with C.J. Stroud. Hopefully he rubbed off on him a lot of it. But what's your other takeaways?
He was out there. So, I'm always, John, I got my eyes on the offensive line. And
talk to me.
Blake Fisher got a lot of time today. And I was standing next to somebody who was like, what are they doing? He's never going to play every, I said, listen, I'm watching him, and I'm watching him hold his own with Maxx Crosby. Yeah, he got beat once, but who wouldn't? It's Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby talking always, how he plays the entire time, right?
Yeah.
I thought Blake Fisher held his own today, and I thought he looked pretty good. So it was interesting to see that. The other thing that was interesting is you're seeing, more Evan Brown. Listen, I think we know that Keylan Rutledge is going to start on his offensive line. We just don't know where. Is he going to be center? Is he going to be a guard? I don't know if I've said this to you, but I have not been super impressed with what I've seen at left guard, from especially when I see Wyatt Keller. So I'm going to just interject this because it's what I believe. It should have never gotten rid of Titus Howard. I know it's a done deal now. It doesn't matter. I know you're trying to save some money. But you're going to probably end up with not keeping one of those guys. They've done that before. We saw it last year with Tomlinson. We saw it with Cam Robinson. Pay the guy, have some consistency on the line. That's just what I think.
The one thing that I've noticed day in and day out, whether I'm reading it on social media, watching the game live, or if I'm at practice, with my 4 eyes, they've definitely leaned towards Brown and Patterson over Andrews. And so I look at Andrews as a guy who's an odd man out.
He could be the odd man out.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was a primary center for Houston, I think all but 1 or 2 games last year due to injury. But obviously they're really prioritizing talent. And I think that speaks to where Coach Popovich is right now when evaluating his offensive line. Would you agree?
I think it is. And I think when people today were like, what are they doing? You're never going to see Blake Fisher starting at right tackle. Why is he out there with CJ? And so here's what I think. I remember Blake Fisher having to start against the Chargers last year just because of injury. The last game of the season. And I thought he held his own in that game. So I'm not saying that, Blake Fisher is ready to be a starter on the line, but I do think it's fair to say he's improving and then he's gotten better. And, I think, listen, when Trent Brown is, he's competing with the guy you brought in to start at right tackle. And I like Trent Brown, one of my favorite people. There's a challenge with this staff. And I'm going to say Nick Caserio when it comes to offensive linemen. Now, listen, hit it out of the park with Keylan Rutledge. Look like the people who say he's the best offensive lineman in the whole room. But beyond that,
you just said something. You just said something that piqued my interest. So we're going to continue to talk Texans with Miss Kim Davis on today's podcast. Stick around for a fun Tuesday evening show.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ross Jackson, host of the Locked On Saints podcast, and today's Locked On episode is brought to you by our friends at Basque and Lather. I've been using Basque and Lather's all-natural, 100% organic hair care products for my beard for a couple years now, and it's been a lifesaver because I used to have some bad beard care habits. I'm talking over-the-counter shampoo in the beard type stuff that created this brittle, scratchy, and uncomfortable beard that I just had to wear around all the time. But now the game done changed. Thanks to Basque and Lather, I got their beard care starter kit, which gave me shampoo, conditioner, oil balm, and their hair growth stimulator formula as well. And now my beard is full. It's soft but strong, and the confidence is on 10, and it's all thanks to Basque and Lather. Explore viral bestsellers and products of healthier hair of all types from Basque and Lather. Go to basqueandlatherco.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off. That's 20% off at basqueandlatherco.com. Code Locked On.
We're back talking Texans, and I want to follow up on that offensive lineman comment. Keylan Rutledge looks to be the best in the room. Is that an indication on maybe Ursary not progressing in year two?
No, I just think Keylan Rutledge is probably a special talent. You know, I think that Ursary's probably coming along fine. But it's something about Keylan Rutledge that people just say jumps off the page. You know, of course, it was one little scuffle today, and you know it was
with
him.
Maxx. Yeah.
You know it was going to be Keylan.
I think with Keylan, and this is why I love talking with Miss Davis, y'all. We had these type of conversations all the time. But I think with Keylan, he's something the room hadn't seen before from a young player. I guess we can point to Ed Ingram, because last year was his third year in the league. And so he brought some type of attitude, but not right out of the gate, right? And the Texans didn't draft him. And the last offensive lineman full of attitude, who plays with that type of head on fire, Dwayne Brown, maybe?
I was going to say Dwayne Brown, yeah.
And that was 15 years ago?
Yeah, I think you make a very good point. We haven't seen an offensive lineman really in this room and with this group that has had that kind of tenacity, right? Just kind of, you know, I hate to use, when I say violent, I don't mean violent in a bad way, but just aggressive and, you know, like I'm gonna knock you on your tail, right? Yeah. These Maxx Crosby, whoever it is, we haven't seen that, and this dude's a rookie. You know, and Nick Caley always goes back to when he was drafted, and he said, "Man, I don't even have a suit. Maybe he had one suit." He goes, "I just love it." I mean, he is that guy, and you're right. That is one of the things that's different. So I'm not there yet to say he's the best in the room. You know, maybe everybody else is just much further along in how they are able to evaluate talent. He's really good, and he's going to start, and I think he's going to be a good player in this league.
And that's what the Texans need. I think that's what CJ Stroud needs. I think that type of energy in that room can kind of transition to everybody playing some good football. Obviously, what we like the most about it is we've seen in the past where Stroud will get hit late and there ain't no offensive lineman come to their quarterback.
He just stepping over him and like
that ain't gonna happen this year. But I do want to talk about Stroud. How was he today? How was Stroud today?
Good. I thought it looked pretty good. Now, you know, you've been out there, so they're playing on the two fields, the one closest to the parking lot and the one in the middle. So, you know, it's a lot more people. So when they were going away from us, there were things that, quite frankly, you just couldn't see. And so I'm setting that up to say some people were like, he didn't look real sharp early. I don't really know. I couldn't see. No, I didn't see all of that. But what I did see later was he did look good. I thought he looked pretty sharp, and I thought, you know, it was good to see them. The Texans offense get a chance to go up against some different stuff, a different front, a different kind of defense. And I thought he made the adjustments. I thought he got the team, the offense organized. And there was one point where Nick Caley was yelling, "Get in the huddle," not to CJ, but just in general. So I like the fact that they are making it a point to, you know, speed up the operation, which was something we saw last year, John, that sometimes was just like, what are they doing? Yeah, you know, so I thought he looked good.
Big year for Stroud. Stroud is in this, I think, period in his life where the questions outweigh the answers for him, at least definitive answers. And I look at this year as one of those seasons where it can kind of make or break him in a sense, not as a man of God, because I know he brings it up a lot, but as a quarterback. But he said something today. I kind of led off the show with to lead up today's show. He's talking about Fernando Mendoza, how he highlighted as long as he continues to be himself and keep God first. But then he also said, and as long as they put talent around him, and it felt like it was a shot to his own front office organization. Then we see Jayden Higgins goes down. The wide receiver room, is it enough in your opinion?
Well, first, for me, I don't think it was a shot. But here's what I do think. I mean, you've seen CJ's demeanor. He doesn't come to the podium. He's not mad. He's not angry. But he's different, right? He's on business. That guy that we got in year 1 and year 2, you're not going to get that guy. He's been beat down, and I understand it. And I think you've heard me say, I think the criticism has been harsh. I don't think it's been realistic based on what he's had. I had a long conversation. I did an interview with Andre Ware. We talked about it. I think the expectations about some things that have gone on with CJ were just not rooted in reality based on the disruption he's dealt with. And so I think he comes into this year knowing control the controllables, right? And he's right. As long as they put stuff around you, and I don't think it's a shot, it may be a reminder to himself is, I can do better, right? I'm not absolving him from that, but I need some help. You know, he can't do it without people around him. So I think that's the CJ we're seeing, and I'm good with that. That's another step in his maturation process as he continues to mature in this league, because they're not nice to you, you know. And I think he's taken a lot of harsh criticism, and hopefully he is able to tune it out. But in order to answer your question about the room, I was standing there when Jayden Higgins went down, and I was like, oh, I mean, I felt bad for him initially, and then I thought, man, this team can't afford him to be out. Now, when he went down, he grabbed his knee, he turned on his side, and he kind of laid his head back, and I was like, oh my gosh. They started bringing the cart, but then they stopped the cart, and he got up and he walked off, and he kind of grabbed the back of his leg. So I don't know what it is. We don't know what the injury is, and obviously we shouldn't speculate. I'm not a doctor. You've seen guys walk up before. Maybe it's worth, but maybe he's just out for, maybe you even see him on Thursday. I have no idea what it is, and we have not. And when we talked to DeMeco, he didn't know yet either. They really can't afford to lose Jayden Higgins. Jalen Noel was there today. He was dressed, but the fact that he's been sidelined is a little concerning. But here's the thing: talking with Ben McDaniels and talking with Nick Caley, they seem confident that when Jalen Noel is physically ready to go, he can step on the grass and he'll be fine. We'll see, right?
But and that leads me to, and we got to talk about the defense at some point. But that leads me to, where does that confidence come from? I mean, obviously they spend way more time with those players than we do. They see more, right? But I look at last year and I say to myself, why was there such a roadblock for Noel to get on the field when Christian Kirk was banged up, and you still needed some of those speedier guys, those playmaker guys who can take the ball from point A to point B in 4.3 seconds, because that's his 40 time. So the offseason matters, but the reps matter. And for Noel, he hasn't had the reps.
He has not had the reps. And to answer your question about Kaylee, remember, Kaylee didn't know what he was doing. I'm sorry. I don't mean any disrespect to him. He knows football, but he was doing all the things were new. First-time offensive coordinator, first-time play caller. And so Christian Kirk was a guy that had the big check. I mean, you know how the league works. So you come in. I think there's a lot that was going on. I'm not saying anybody told him, you got to play this dude. I just think as he was figuring it out, a lot more goes into the fact that he was trying to figure out his footing as well. And I think it's a combination of stuff. Here are some good things. There are some young guys that look really good, but they are young. I think Louis Bond has looked good.
He's been looking very good.
Who's that?
Louis Bond.
Louis Bond is a good. Jared Wayne, who is not as young. I mean, he's been here, so he knows more of the offense. He's like a young veteran. He's looked really, really good. Hutch is taking another step. Now, those guys aren't Jayden Higgins, right? I'm not saying that. Optimally, you want Jayden. You want your 1, 2, and 3 to be Nico, Jayden, and Noel. That's what you want. I don't know what you're going to see. But the good thing is, and you'll be there Thursday night, we'll get a chance to see more of the ones play. Some of the ones play a little bit in on Thursday night, I believe. And we'll see.
Yeah. One of the things that I brought up on the Tuesday morning show was how much of this tight end room should we expect to be extension of the receiver room, in a sense of when the Texans need to have some go-to guys, it may not necessarily come from your wide receiver 3, 4, or 5. It may just be Nico whenever Higgins gets back on the field. Obviously, Godspeed to that recovery, whatever it looks like in his injury. But then Schultz, and I think Marlon Klein could be a name that we throw in at some point during this season because of his athletic ability and his explosive route running.
I think you make a great point. I think that Marlon Klein is that guy. I also think that Foster Moreau gives you some things that you can use. I was disappointed that we haven't seen Brevin Jordan. I think he's that hybrid kind of guy that can change that room, and he's just not been available. You know, he's been a little banged up, and that's unfortunate. Hopefully he can get back on the field in a significant way in the next few days, but I haven't seen him. And I was like, poor Brevin. You know what I mean? He's been so injury plagued. But I do think this tight end room, it's interesting. The tight end coach is new, being a tight end coach, but you know, Kaylee, that's what he did. He was a tight end coach. And so he's always trying to find, you know, like DeMeco was joking in the offseason, like, man, he want more tight ends, right? He has an appreciation and value for that position and what they can do, and not just in the run game, but for what they can do in terms of pass catching. So I think you're right. You know, I don't even know, because Brevin has been hurt. Maybe he starts, depending on whether or not he comes back before preseason is over or not. Maybe he starts the season on the PUP list or IR. I'm not really sure, but I think the decision about that room was made a little easier when he unfortunately went down. Right? You know, you got Schultz. You know, you got Stover, who's also your backup, your emergency quarterback. We found that out last week after they lost Graham in the preseason game. And then more than likely you've got Foster, and then they really like Marlon Klein. And so those are probably going to be your 4.
Yeah. I think this offense, they need to definitely evaluate some things before getting into the regular season. The last thing we want to see is another year where it feels like Stroud has to do a lot of heavy lifting. And I think that is still a lot to ask of a quarterback going into his second season with a second offensive coordinator without the necessary consistent pieces around him. Let's talk about the defense when we get back. More Locked On Texans talk on today's pod. And before we dive into the defensive conversation with Miss Kim Davis, guys, I want to let you know about FanDuel. And I'm talking to my baseball fans out there. Go Stros! Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with Daily Dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. If you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. And listen, Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with everyday games, whether you're following your favorite team like the Houston Astros or keeping an eye on matchups across the league. Every game has someone capable of going deep. Now you get the chance to make your prediction before the first pitch. And listen, sometimes it's a hitter who's on a hot streak, a favorable pitching matchup, or a ballpark that tends to give up a lot of home runs. Those are always the first things I look for before making my Daily Dingers pick. And you should also look at the same thing before making your Daily Dingers pick as well. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all of the action at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. Miss Kim Davis, John Hickman, Locked On Texans Tuesday evening show. The defense, they had an opportunity to go up against Klint Kubiak, one of the most wanted offensive play callers in the NFL, especially coming off of that season how he continued to help Sam Darnold, JSN become the offensive player of the year. He's in Vegas now, different scheme. So for the Texans defense, they had an opportunity to go up against somebody that's not Nick Caley. What were your defensive takeaways from Tuesday?
Well, here's one way you can almost sum it up: is that practice ended with Kamari Lassiter picking off Kirk Cousins and returning it for a pick six. That's how it ended today.
That's always good news.
So listen, this defense, whether it's Fernando Mendoza, Kirk Cousins, or I think this defense is going to be able to eat against most people. And so we just saw more of that today. They're just good. And they've got weapons. They've got some depth. I like what I'm seeing from some of the depth. We talked about Kamari Ramsey. We talked about Colin Wright, the kid that's went to Manville, I believe. Went to Stanford as a defensive back. Didn't have the greatest outing in the first preseason game, but it's looked good at practice. So that's been good. And then what you get up front from the line, with the ends of, Will and Daniil, and then, if they're not in your face, you got to deal with Clowney. And the defense looked pretty good. I think I spent most of my time watching the offense. I did peek over at the defense some. And, we don't really have anything to worry about the defense. We just need them to stay healthy, right? They didn't have any major injuries last year. I mean, they did lose, MJ Stewart, and they lost, was Jalen Ramsey. They lost some of the young guys, but we need those key guys to be able to stay healthy again this year. And if they do that, I think the defense is going to be superior.
I love the secondary depth, though. Kamari Ramsey, Jalen Reed, like you mentioned, didn't get an opportunity to see him play as a rookie last year. Reed Blankenship is added. So, he's not a depth piece, but just the players that they've brought in, J-Rock, Jalen Smith, who I think what I love about him the most, he plays a little bit like Kamari, where he's not scared to come down and make a tackle, especially in the run support area. So the secondary depth I love the most. The D tackle depth I probably love just as much as the secondary depth, but that edge spot, Will, Daniil, Jadavian, great. But at some point, Houston's going to have to make a decision. Yeah. Are they going to roll with a Bird? Will it be Ali Gay, or will they have to go ahead and just say, let's shift Logan Hall out to be our fourth edge rusher on this depth spot?
Those are great questions. And I can't wait to see what they decide. Right. It's a good problem to have.
Great problem to have.
And I really like the position coach, right? Coach Rob is just, you see him going through the work, and the players have such a tremendous amount of respect for him. And he is so big on all of the details about the technique, which DeMeco always talks about as the thing that separates the players other than your God-given ability. Like Will Anderson is just, he's Will Anderson, right? But I think that, coming into camp, let me ask you this, John, were you concerned about the depth of D tackle? Were you concerned about that position group until they made a few moves?
Coming into camp?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I was never concerned about that. I was never concerned about that spot because Tommy Togiai, Sheldon Rankins, and they added Caden McDonald, and then they brought back Naquan Jones, he's a name we look over.
Mario Edwards.
And Mario Edwards. And so Naquan, and we saw it last Thursday where he dropped him back in coverage, and then he go get a sack. That's crazy. So I love that D tackle depth. Even Keontae Hamilton has made some plays and been playing.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about him. I heard somebody one day at practice say this is like the weak, I think this is the weak link if I had to pick one. And that's who I would go at. And I'm sitting back going like, I don't know.
No.
Oh, no.
I don't know. And here's the thing. We know the Texans rotate those D tackles so much to where they ask them to do a lot. They put a lot on their plate, but it's not like their eyes get bigger than their stomach because they can always take a break. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I love that D tackle unit. And I also believe that as Caden McDonald continues to grow and progress, because I still think he's a raw prospect in a sense. He just immensely talented. Once Wright really get him right, no pun intended, the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I think you're right. He is raw, but he is so eager. Like we were in the stadium yesterday, and how when they're switching over between
I
drills and
heard
they
the
blow the
AC was out
horn
yesterday
and
too.
he is like, I'm ready for. And he does it every time. Like when you watch him, that's his approach, and he probably learned that from Will Anderson Jr. About how to approach it. Because he talked to Will a lot when he first got drafted. That's what he said. He had talked to Will, and he talked to other guys in the room, but learning it the right way and getting those foundations, he will have a bright, long, and very fruitful future in this league.
Yeah. Especially if he continues working with Raw Wright, who I think is the best D-line coach, if not 1A across the NFL.
Absolutely.
Any player you want to see have a good moment or 2 or 3 on Thursday?
So, if we're talking about the starters getting in, I do want to see. Yeah, I'm still curious about the run game, but I'm also curious about Whittington. I think he's got a real shot to make this team, and so I guess maybe he's a guy that I want to see more from. And Colin Wright, because he's kind of from a sentimental value. I want him to see him have a game. I'd like to see him. He's had a great camp, but I need him to do it in a game to help his chances. I'm thinking about some of the guys who are, will be depth players for this team. And then in terms of receivers, I guess depending on who you have. We know what Nico can do. I guess could continue to see what either Hutch or Jared Wayne can do. I think they're probably going to keep. I don't know if it's 6 or 7 receivers. Sometimes I hate roster construction. I try to think about it in the math. If Tank's going to make the team. I don't know if he makes it as an active player on the roster when they get down to 53, but he's going to be a Texan. And I'm just wondering, here's the thing, does Tank get some run on this, in preseason? Because at some point he's got to get on the field in a game. And do you want to get him some time in preseason? Or you just want to wait till you feel like, and I get it. I respect the fact that they're ramping him up and he's on his own schedule. But, if he is physically capable, I'd like to see him just a little bit, just a little bit.
They got him listed as a kick returner right now. Punt returner, excuse me, on the unofficial depth chart. I'll tell you what, man, I also want to see Josh Kelly have a moment or two. I think that
oh, yeah.
If Higgins, if that's something that will progress into maybe he's going to have time out. If Noel continues to progress slowly, obviously looking at Tank Daly, him being on his own timeline, those are 3 guys battling injury that Houston needs day one. So if they don't have them day one, will they look outside of the building or will they continue to rock with some of the guys that they have here? Josh Kelly is a guy that could possibly fill the role of a Jalen Noel / Tank Dale. Thank you for stopping by today, Ms. Kim. I really appreciate it.
Hey, I always enjoy being with you. And let me just say this before I go. If Jayden Higgins is going to be out anytime, they got to go get somebody else.
They got to.
They got to bring in somebody.
Spend that draft capital and go get you a playmaker. And I think, honestly, even if Jayden Higgins wasn't out, they needed to do that in the first place.
Yeah, right. This will force their hand.
Yeah, it will. Hopefully they make the right decision. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Also follow Ms. Kim on Twitter on social media as well. You can find her at Kim Davis.
Kim Y. Davis on Twitter, X, whatever it's called. And then everywhere else at Kim Y. Davis Media.
Until next time, ladies and gents and Texas fans across the nation, peace.